Well, that was the best weekend the Tigers have had in years. Let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Monday, September 23rd, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. So book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. And if you're from out of town and you're a Tigers fan, get on Booking.com and come watch the Detroit Tigers play what is, without a doubt, the most important and exciting 6 games of baseball at Comerica Park that have been played there in probably 8 years. In the terms of the actual baseball being played on the field. Obviously, we had the Miguel Cabrera retirement tour last year, and there was a lot of stuff happening leading up to, that entire season in terms of, Miggy moments and whatnot. But in terms of, because of the baseball team, because of the wins and losses, because of the standings, you have 6 games left. They're all at home. And you are in the playoffs at the time of this recording. I can't even believe I just said those words. You are in the postseason if the season ended today on Monday. You're in. That weekend arguably could not have gone better. If you want a perfect weekend, I guess would have been sweeping the Orioles. But legitimately, that it was everything that you needed to have happen as the Detroit Tigers pretty much happened. The Tigers win a series in Baltimore again for the second time in a week, basically. They lose 7-1 on Friday against Corbin Burns, and then win the next 2 games 6-4 and 4-3 in what can only be described as 2 of the most just palpitating games you will watch. Absolutely electric, terrifying, nerve-wracking, you name it. They're 7-3 in their last 10 games and are now 82-74 on the season. That also, 82 wins, for those math whizzes at home, clinches an above 500 record for the first time since 2016. You know what I was doing in 2016? I was graduating high school. That is how long it has been since the Detroit Tigers went over 500. I turned 18 in 2016. My entire adult life has been losing baseball. And now finally, we are celebrating a team that even if they completely implode, they don't make the playoffs and lose out, they will have gone over 500. But they're not going to lose out. And they're not out of it. If the season ended today, they would be in the postseason. Not only that, they're now tied with the Royals. I think Sunday was legitimately one of the most important baseball games the Detroit Tigers have played in almost a decade, in about 8 years. And they won it. And now pretty much every game from here on out is vital. Pretty much every game you play from here on out is going to be the most important game you have played in just about 8 years. We have to take a trip down memory lane. Do you all remember the mindset going into the first Baltimore series? Not the one we just finished this weekend, the first one, right? You were coming off of series wins against Colorado and Oakland, and the thought between me and most of the fan base was, all right, I need to see what they do in these next 9 games against Baltimore, Kansas City, and then Baltimore again before I'm like all in on this, playoff push type of narrative. The Detroit Tigers proceeded to go 7-2 with a sweep and 3 series wins. Absolutely unbelievable. What went right this weekend? We're going to start off with Beau Brieske, okay? We're going to start off with him. Beau Brieske entered a game in the bottom of the ninth with no outs, with men on second and third, and it was tied 4-4, bottom of 9, second and third, no outs, and did not give up a single run. Forced extra innings, and then the Tigers would end up winning that ball game. For my NBA fans out there, do you remember, this is probably 3 years ago, maybe even 4. This might have been the bubble, actually, now that I think about it. When the Clippers were up, it was like 2 game, maybe, was that a 3-1 lead? They were up like multiple games in the series and were up like 25 points in the third quarter and then somehow lost the series. And everybody sent the screenshot of them up like 90 whatever to like 68 in the third quarter, down 2-1 or up 2-1 in the series or 3-1 in the series because they lost that series, but that moment existed. That's how I felt. It's like, take a screenshot of the score bug, right? The Bally score bug. Second and third, I'm not going to repeat the situation again, but that screenshot and then go, okay, but the Tigers not only won this game, they won the series. They were down 1-0 in the series, and that was the situation, and they won 2 of 3. And a lot of that, aside from Beau Brieske, also has to do with Trey Sweeney making what may be the catch of the year from somebody not named Parker Meadows. Got to throw that caveat in there. Unbelievable, though. Absolutely unbelievable. Lays the body out. Riley Greene coming in, him going out, and just boom, injury timeout. Not only is he okay, then plays the next day, gets a knock as well. Absolutely incredible stuff. He had a solid weekend all around, too. A couple of knocks here and there, RBI or 2. Dylan Dingler, I want to give a ton of credit as well. Had 2 RBIs on Saturday. We've been pretty much done nothing but dog this dude's offense for the better part of a month. For him to come through in that situation, get a couple of RBIs that ended up being very, very important, it was really good to see. And hopefully that is the sign of things to come, and he can build some momentum on that. Speaking of good catches from people not named Parker Meadows, let's talk Parker Meadows' defense. What a weekend. Golly, what a weekend. I can't believe this is even happening. They are the third wild card. Sole possession. Well, they're tied for the second wild card, actually, which makes them the third. The Royals own the tiebreaker. If the season ended today, the Detroit Tigers would be in the playoffs. They were 9 games under 500, like a month and a half or 2 months ago. It's ridiculous. Parker Meadows, defense all weekend, an absolute vital part to the team's success. Had a diving catch on Saturday, robbed another home run on Sunday. He is unbelievable. He had another catch this weekend too. Like I'm running out of superlatives. Like I'm running out of ways to describe how incredible he is. I'll just repeat what I have been saying for the last couple of weeks and what we continue to call him. He is Superman. Parker Meadows is Superman. I love him. And I don't care who knows. Let's keep the ball rolling here. Got some offensive performances I want to talk about, and then we'll talk bullpen as well before we get to what went wrong. Not a perfect weekend, but dang near a perfect weekend. And then we'll obviously end with stuff. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you today about our friends over at Booking.com. Yeah. Look, we know that you want to explore some cities that maybe you don't want to admit you want to explore. Okay. Cleveland, big rival of the Detroit Tigers. Do we want to, talk well about the Cleveland Guardians? Last week we did because they beat the Twins, but usually we're not too fond of Ohio up here. But I love going to Cleveland and catching a ball game. And Booking.com helps me and thousands of others do that as well. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival's city, maybe even during the postseason. Maybe it's time to take a test of your baseball competition's stadium cuisine, or again, downtown area, you name it. And luckily on Booking.com, you can find the stadium stay that's just right for you. Booking.com delivers exactly the right stay for you. So no matter who you're rooting for this postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. From hotels that overlook stadiums to family-friendly resorts and cute bed and breakfasts, Booking.com has so many choices to choose from across the U.S. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Also got to talk to you all about our friends over at FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all for tuning in as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back tomorrow, hyping you up for these next 6 games that the Detroit Tigers have. This final stretch, playoff baseball is within reach in the Motor City for the first time in a decade. Oh, my goodness. We're not even going to think about that right now. We got to take it one step at a time. Let's talk about how great this weekend was. Also, be sure to check out Jake Rietma on the Locked On Tigers postcast immediately following every game. So what went right in this ball game? We've talked a lot about some defense. We obviously talked about some pitching performances as well. Offensively, mentioned Dylan Dingler. Kerry Carpenter on Sunday was a man possessed. He was unbelievable. 2 home run game on Sunday, and continues to show his value. And like, he's been so much better defensively too. Like, I don't disagree with the decision to take him out against lefties down the stretch here, right? Like, at this point, you need to treat every game like a playoff game. You're trying to get into the postseason, baby. But I still would like to see him next year maybe get a little bit more opportunities against lefties. That would be a great thing to unlock, even if he's not ever elite or as good against righties as he is against lefties, right? Just having him be serviceable against lefties would just be such an advantage for this team. So we'll keep an eye on that, but he's so good. He's so good. He's such an elite hitter, and the 2 home run performance was absolutely a team on my back type of performance. Was a huge reason why the Tigers won on Sunday, which, like I said at the beginning of the show, was one of the most important games the Tigers have played in years. Riley Greene on Saturday goes 3 for 4 with the go-ahead RBI in extras as well. That's a franchise player performance, man. That is also a team on your back. A true, you are the centerpiece of this organization. You are the centerpiece of the lineup. We're building this around you type of performance, and that is what he ended up doing. Fantastic stuff. Had a couple of great defensive plays on Saturday as well in left field. Fantastic. And then we get to the bullpen, which has been my shining star throughout these this run, this last month and a half of incredible Tigers baseball. On Sunday, only Ty Madden gave up runs. Everybody else that took the mound did not. On Saturday, Jason Foley struggled. We'll talk about him when we get to what went wrong this weekend, but everyone else was pretty darn great. And then on Friday, Keider Montero gave up 5 runs. I think that was a weird outing. We'll talk about that in a second too. But Kenta Maeda pitched over 2 innings of bullpen work and was fine. So like, the bullpen continues to be such an important reason to this team's success, arguably the most important. So want to give them a ton of credit. Will Vest specifically, especially on Sunday, man, absolute dog. 1 2/3 of shutout ball. It's not only the fact that they're all great, they're all giving over an inning of work. Like, all of them are getting stretched out and all of them are coming through. It's one of those situations where you're almost just kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. You're like, oh no, this is it. Like the bullpen's they're finally going to crumble here. And then they don't, right? Like Hannafy, huge strikeout of Cedric Mullins in that game on Sunday. Was it the 6th inning, 7th inning? Massive, right? Like it's back against the wall. It gets a little shaky, and then they tightrope out of danger. And it is not good for my heart, not good for my head, but really good for me. I didn't really roll how I wanted it to, but we're keeping it in. Will Vest, just absolutely fantastic. And then Spencer Torkelson with a big homer on Sunday. Good to see that after kind of a rough performance on Saturday. What went wrong this weekend? Keider Montero, kind of a weird outing. I feel like you can almost split this outing in half into what went right and what went wrong. This was 5 runs, but also 7 strikeouts. But of that 5 runs, 4 home runs against is brutal. This was really just a performance that was kind of all in or all out to me. Like this was the pitches that were really bad, and the pitches that were really good were really good. And that doesn't sound like very good analysis. I understand that, but that's kind of how I felt watching, right? Like he had a lot of swing and miss. His changeup, I think, was maybe the best it's ever looked. Like legit, I'm not being hyperbolic there. Like I genuinely believe that and mean that. I think that his fastball, when it was located well, was really good. The curveball continues to be a weapon for him. But when he was hanging the curveball and when the fastball was over the heart of the plate and when the changeup wasn't at the ankles, it got all of those pitches got absolutely smoked. And so it was just weird. It was a weird performance. I think Montero has just been he's been exactly what we talked about him being when he got called up. It was like the stuff is good. You're going to see flashes. He's also going to get popped. That's almost to a T what has happened. And so it's stressful when these learning experiences come in such important games that we didn't expect to be such important games here down the stretch. But he is still a rookie that is going through his development at the end of the day. And so you got to keep that in the back of your mind, despite the fact that every game matters more than it like ever has for a lot of these guys. Jason Foley on Saturday, obviously not very great. Sunday was a great bounce back performance. I actually really like Hinch going to Foley there because you're going to need Foley in these last 6 games. You're going to need him to be really good in this final home stretch here. And you're going to need him in the postseason as well, if that ends up happening. Promise I'm not getting ahead of myself. So you need his confidence to be at a high right now. And so going right back to the well there, not, going, oh, we're not going to use you. We're not going right back to your highest leverage reliever you've been using all season. Getting him back on the winning side of things, I think, is a great managerial decision. So tip of the cap to everybody involved there. And then kind of a weird wrench here that I didn't expect to ever be talking about. Andy Ibanez's numbers have slowly just kind of been slipping, and he's still kind of only playing against lefties, or at least getting put into the game originally against lefties. Just hasn't been great lately. It hasn't been great lefty. Also true. So it's just been an interesting development. We'll see. Hopefully he can turn that around, but he's such a streaky hitter because he just swings at everything. All right. He's not a big walk drawer. I mean, if you remember last year, he went on a huge hot streak and then I think went like 0 for 40 or something ridiculous in 40 consecutive plate appearances, not at bats, and then turned it around and was like one of the best hitters on the team again for the next 3 weeks after that. So like this is just kind of the Andy Ibanez experience, but it is something that I've noticed, and it was another thing that certainly went wrong this weekend as well. He did not have a great series against Baltimore. Let's talk stuff. Okay, we're going to talk about the weekend that was, kind of big picture as a whole. We'll talk about this next week, and obviously we'll talk about that American League wildcard race, baby. All right, we'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to you today about our friends over at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports Because unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch all of the winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard can get you one win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. That means there's only one weekend left of that amazing deal in getting a free W. You can also now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive a $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Let's talk stuff, okay? The Royals. The Kansas City Royals are on a 7-game losing streak, an L7, and are now tied with your Detroit Tigers for the second wildcard spot. And the Twins lost both games on Sunday. Game 2 was actually pretty close, and then Boston just blew the doors off in the middle innings. So the Twins are now a game back from wild card 3. The Tigers are wild card 3. And the Royals have the same record as the Tigers and are wild card 2 as they own that tiebreaker over the Detroit Tigers. We went over the schedules for those 3 teams, Twins, Royals, Tigers, on Friday's show. So you can go, if you didn't listen to that, you can go listen. We break down kind of everybody's schedule between those 3 teams remaining here the rest of the year and kind of the outlook of the Tigers' chances and all that good stuff. But the fact of the matter is we live in a completely different world than we did on Friday. And now you have the Twins losing big in Fenway, and you have the Tigers taking 2 of 3, and you have the Royals getting swept in back-to-back series. So now you have a 3-game set at home against the Tampa Bay Rays, and then a 3-game set at home against the worst team in the history of baseball. They hit their 120th loss. That ties the World Series era record, and they have 6 games left. You think they're going to win out? The 03 Tigers did it, but it still seems pretty unlikely. Now, when it comes to the road that lies ahead before the White Sox, though, Tampa Bay is not some gimme series, like an awful team, man. Like, I don't know why this fan base is just like, oh, Tampa Bay, we'll just steamroll them. No problems. We just need to get through Baltimore. I get it, right? Tampa Bay is nowhere near Baltimore this year, but this team is exactly 500, right? Like they always get solid pitching. They always do matchup ball and play that really well. There would be a lot of managerial decisions that Cash and Hinch will have to make this weekend. But this is very far from just a hand me 2 of 3 and let's go home, right? So we'll preview that a lot more tomorrow, obviously, but this is just awesome. This is so awesome. And this means so much to so many people. And I don't know what to do with myself. I like this is so unexpected and out of nowhere and not what I was planning to talk about in September whatsoever. And I couldn't be happier. Orioles, wildcard 1, Royals, wildcard 2, Tigers, wildcard 3, Twins a game back from us. Twins a game back from us. How crazy is that to say? Seattle 2 games back from us, and we own the tiebreaker over them as well. Continue changing your expectations is my theme here, right? Like going into the post-trade deadline, it was just don't be awful the rest of the way. Don't let the wheels completely. That's literally what I said on this show. I came on here, looked into the camera, and said, just don't let the wheels fall off post-deadline. I thought it was going to get really ugly. Instead, they've been one of the 2 or 3 best teams in baseball since the deadline. So expectations change, right? A few weeks later, it's, maybe shoot for 500 again. Then it's, maybe shoot to be like one of the best teams that misses the postseason. Then it's you should shoot for the playoffs. Now it's get into the postseason, maybe even get wild card too. Everybody else in the wild card picture is free falling. Everybody else. You won't catch Baltimore. You're going to run out of time there, but like they're falling. Kansas City, free falling. Minnesota, free falling. Seattle, the epitome of mediocre. Elite pitching, no offense. So you play the Rays. You're going to throw Skubal, Montero, and Olsen out there. Skubal's going to get game one. That's at home. That should be an electric environment, a fantastic, fantastic crowd, and hopefully a fantastic result there. Love going to Scooby in game one. Again, we'll preview that series fully in tomorrow's show. The interesting thing, and we'll talk about this a little bit more tomorrow too, is that him going in game one does set up Skubal pitching game 162. Now, if you need to win game 162, then you pitch Tarek Skubal. I don't care that it's the White Sox, right? You need to, if it's a win and you're in, then you throw Skubal. I don't care who the opponent is. If you clinched prior, that's when you start having conversations about, oh, maybe we will save him for the wild card round. Not getting ahead of myself, but that's a conversation we'll have down the road. I think the coolest thing I took out of this weekend was that we have woken up from an 8-year coma, right, where it was just awfulness that I wish I could forget, most of it. And we've all opened our eyes, and not only are the Tigers back and playing meaningful baseball, they are like America's team. Right? Like everybody is rooting for the Tigers outside of obviously like AL Central foes and the teams that are in the wild card hunt with us. But like everybody, the national media cannot stop talking about your Detroit Tigers. Other fan bases are all rooting for the Tigers. They're all, I saw one of the Angels, like guys that I follow, was posting about like, wow, I just did a deep dive on the Tigers bullpen stats since the All-Star break. How is this even possible? Right? Like people are realizing how sick you are. And that's incredible. I was up north this weekend for a wedding, and it was an absolute blast. And I watched the Tigers game on Friday on my laptop in the car on the way up. Obviously, I was not driving. Then on Sunday, also laptop in the car. And then Saturday during the reception, the game was on during like the dancing and the partying and whatnot. And just the way that everybody cared, right? Everybody. Hey, how the Tigers doing? Oh, this is the score, right? We might be back. And Detroit is such a great baseball town, and the fact that finally this era is behind us. Finally. Finally. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shots to every day as they do tune in every day. We will be back tomorrow previewing the most important 6-game stretch your Detroit Tigers have had in 8 years. Go Tigers, baby. Did I peace and love going to therapy's dope catch all tomorrow? Go Tigers, baby.